Hello, hello, my Genesis friends. It's me, Jason, here in the North, coming to you once again for another live edition of Beyond the Edge of Exile. And then, without much ado at all, I'm very excited because a certain special guest is going to turn his camera back on now. He's going to unmute his mic now. And there we go. It's time in 3, 2, 1 for JC. Hey, JC, welcome
Season
to the stream.
champions! This is not a test. This is Genesis, baby, from the Great White North all the way to down under in Australia. How are you this evening?
I am great. It is so cool to be chatting with you live on the internets. I want to say welcome to a couple people that are out in the chat already. Cardboard Cohorts, Jason Greenberg. Good to see you all. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm very excited because tonight, as you can see now, my special guest is JC, one of the members of the original Genesis team from the old company. He's made the trek over to the new company, and we are thrilled to have him on board as we are hard at work with this game. And it's been so much fun working with JC already. JC, how are you feeling today?
I can't complain. It is a Monday evening. That means we get to talk about Genesis. We get to work on Genesis. It is always a great day when you get to work on Genesis.
Yes, I love it. So, for a lot of people out there watching, they might not know that originally, when you and I got to know each other, it actually didn't involve Genesis at all at the beginning. Uh,
It sure didn't. Same world per se, but
yeah.
not Genesis.
Is it a secret what company you work for, or can we talk about that? I never know if that's confidential or what.
I try to keep my life separate. I live a double life. A lot of people who probably know me do know a bit of my other, like,
Sure.
how would I put it?
So, without getting into any
My first
specifics,
job.
without getting into any specifics at all, JC does work in the game industry. So, I got to know him a little bit through the fact that I also own a game store. Got to know you and some of your coworkers as well. In fact, one of your coworkers I consider a very good friend along with you. And you guys started making your way up to the store, going way out of your way because it's hours and hours to drive up here for you guys. And I remember you came up at least the first time. I'm pretty sure we went out for wings after we played a bunch of games in the store. Good
Yep.
times. You want to tell the viewers at home whether or not you like hot wings? Like, what's your heat tolerance? Because I always love to push my limits.
I like to keep the heat low because I do like to keep everything in check,
Yeah,
both going in and going out.
that's fair. Yeah, yeah. So we had some fun the first few times you came up, played some games and ate some wings, and then eventually, I don't even know, it was probably maybe a year after I started talking to you and getting to know you, that I had this random stranger call me at the store, and he said that he was involved in creating a collectible card game, and he said that he was told to call my store, to call me specifically because of you.
So during the prior, I don't know if you want to call it the prior guard, the prior times, there are pillars in the communities out there in the gaming world. Uh, where you are up in the north there, I do consider one of those pillars,
Well,
as well
thank
as
you.
other major pillars across whether it's Canada or the US. And if someone were to ask, hey, who should I talk to about something? If that person never does not mind me mentioning them by name, I don't mind saying, hey, you really should talk to this person. They might have the best advice, whether that's for a game itself and starting it up, whether it's community driven, or just other knowledge within the industry itself. I'm going to be honest, a lot of places do better when they do talk and do communicate and do work together. And
Mhm.
that's how I feel with that.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool because Sid, the creator of Genesis, gave me a call and he was like, I've been working on this game for a while. It's starting to do pretty well. We're getting into a few stores. And then JC, who's working on the design team, which I didn't know until he told me in the phone call. I didn't know you had a side hustle working for Genesis. And he's like, JC had recommended it. I'm like, well, you should definitely come up and let me try this game then, because my first thought right away was, well, if I'm friends with a guy and he's involved in the game, I want to try and support it and see if I like it. So Sid came up eventually and taught me how to play Genesis. and it was kind of love at first sight. I got hooked on it right away, and then the rest is history. We kept carrying it. We started carrying it during the beginning of the pandemic, which is surreal to say now. I keep looking to my side because Janice is right beside me, and there she is. And like we were only a couple months into the pandemic. Obviously, we had no idea it was going to last for 2 years or something. But we brought in the game even though we couldn't do tournaments, and like we were pushing it hard, trying to promote it, and good things happen to those who persist. And I kept persisting and kept trying to promote Genesis for a long time, and look where we are now. Isn't that crazy?
It's amazing how it's amazing sometimes how things kind of fall into place or where things end up at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And with Genesis is no different. Like, would I expect before the pandemic to, instead of talking to one team, be talking to you and discussing the game on your stream and working with you and Janice and Jeff? I probably would never imagine it. It's interesting how the world kind of goes at times.
To be honest, we never imagined it either, right? Like, it's a really fun and surreal life to be living right now. It's really cool. So it wasn't expected at all. So
This is the like I am always concerned in the card game industry because we are seeing a lot right now. But this is but this is also a great time for a lot of games. We are seeing a lot of indie development in like the board game industry and even the card game industry now. People who would never be able to break out 10 years ago, 15 years ago, can break out and bring a game to market
mhm.
on their own.
Well, and some games have done so well on Kickstarters recently that they've wound up going straight to wholesale even before the Kickstarters released the product, just based on the sales and the anticipation, the hype. I'm pretty sure Sorcery did that. That they got in with some major wholesalers before the Kickstarter product even shipped, which is really cool. So there are definitely opportunities out there for people with good ideas to be able to seize the day, so to speak, and get in the market. Are you able to see the chat where you are, JC? Because there's a question for you.
Oh, there's a oh wait, let's see. Do. Well, he's smiling and seems happy, so that's a lot to say. I am happy in that. I do smile a lot because it's better than frowning. You know, turn that frown upside down type thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. I have the YouTube chat up, unless you have a different one from me.
Yeah,
Uh,
so below that in the YouTube chat, Cardboard Cohorts asks you a question. He says, so how does it feel working for Edge of Exile versus Haunted Castle Gaming? Do you feel like it's a fresh start and heading in a new direction that HCG refused to go? That's the question to you, is basically how do you feel working with the new company versus the old one?
so I'm gonna go a little bit with a business answer on this. Uh, the creation of with Haunted Castle Gaming and Genesis is a was wonderful. It's a great game, great mechanics,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it felt more like a passion project and someone wanting it to be a tabletop game for friends. That's not to say anything bad to anyone, but that's where the impression was. And to keep it in that realm prevents it from growing. And with Edge of Exile, we are seeing more of it being treated like a business. It's here. People have to make money off it too. It is a business first in that. Even though it's community driven in that, I don't not even though we are backed by the community, it is still a business at heart and it's being treated as such. And when it's being treated as a business, proper business decisions will be made. If it's treated as a game with a small community, like they're all friends, you're not always making the best decisions. You're making it based off a few voices in that. And really, this game should be doing well in many markets. I believe that in the European market, this game will get devoured because of its tactical nature. Some of the Southeast Asian markets would love this game, and Quebec loves their strategy games as well. So treating it as a business decision and treating it with that already is a better feeling because it's going to go somewhere when it's being treated that way. It's being treated as a business. It is something that people have to live off of. So just knowing that is already a better feeling.
Can I add my 2 cents onto what you're saying?
Absolutely.
So for me, I just because I worry some people might hear what you're saying and maybe misconstrue it a bit. When you say that we're treating it as a business, I think it's important to let people know that what I interpret from that, and at least how I look at it, is we treat it like a business in so much as we take the responsibility of building this game up very seriously. It's not just a hobby for us. It's certainly not a
No,
passion project, like you had said. This is something that we believe has almost unlimited potential. Like the game's really fun. And I can say that everyone I've taught how to play the game winds up loving it, and the hardest challenge is always just convincing people to give it a shot. And once they've given a shot, they love it. So when you see that there's that kind of no limit, no ceiling to how it could grow, we take that responsibility really seriously. So that's why we're business first, because we want to make sure we have the right foundations, the right plans in place to A, get the game all across the world. Like wherever people want it, we want to be able to sell it to them, and we want to grow the community. And we know that if we do things right, eventually down the line, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be able to do big world championships where we'll have more people coming in. And like, we're probably going to be doing international championships where the next one might be in the States or wherever. And, but the thing is, we treat it like a business first just because we have so much respect for the game. And we know that the potential is there to make it go huge. And that's our priority, right? So, I treat it like my full-time job. Even today, I worked it for about 5 hours just on Genesis stuff behind the scenes while I'm also doing stuff for my other business. Like, we take it really seriously, and there's no messing around with Genesis. We're going to do everything we can to make the customers, to make the players, to make the community as thrilled and as happy as possible, because we're in the business of making you, the viewers at home, have fun. So that's my thoughts on it. I just didn't want people to think we're cold and heartless and all we care about is money, because that is a way you could interpret it when you say it's business first, but that's totally not the view for us at all, right? We
it's
just,
probably not.
yeah, just a lot
If
of respect for it, you know? So,
it is, and people have to understand where the game was when all this started to happen. It was getting to a point where if it kept getting treated like a passing project, it would have stifled its growth.
mm,
And like the game was beyond what the current capacity was of the ownership. And understanding that fact is extremely important to say, hey, I got to make sound decisions now. And that's the biggest, if people want the biggest difference, that's the biggest difference with Edge of Exile is that those decisions to take it further are being made with sound information, not because again, if we had went with how it was prior, I'm going to be honest, the growth of where it was, it would have stifled at one point or another. Because it is hard to manage something once it's past a certain point.
well, and I think, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth either, but, and I'm not going to say anything at all about how the previous company worked because I wasn't a member of that staff. I can't say anything like that. But I will say that I think one of the strengths that all of us on the design team and the management team have enjoyed so far is we have really done a good job, I feel, collaborating with each other and maybe even more important, listening to each other. When you or Will have had any ideas from the design team, you bring them forward to us, we listen to them and we consider them. And if it's a good idea, we've proceeded with them, right? And like one of the things I'm really proud of already this early in the game is just that it doesn't matter who has an idea. If it's a great idea that we think is going to help the game, we pursue it. And that's how we're going to keep going, right? So, and sometimes a bad idea leads to a good idea too. So it's fun to have those discussions where everybody gets listened to and everybody's got an equal say in it, so to speak. And I think that's going to be great because I think when like next year when we have sets coming out that we did from start to finish ourselves, I think it's going to be really exciting where we're all going to feel great as a team because we all work together to make it happen.
And that being said, like as you said, with working together and collaborating, it really does feel like no idea is off the table at that point too. Where if something wants to be tested, or an idea is out there, it's not, oh well, it doesn't work within the contrivance of the game. It's like we can just let's make it happen. Let's every other game's done whatever we've talked about. Let's apply it. Let's try it. Easy
Yeah.
peasy.
Yeah. And I don't really want to give any spoilers about stuff that we're talking about for Metamorphosis or whatever that set winds up being named after Invasion. But like I've loved the discussions internally where we've talked about game mechanics, we've talked about card design, and I am so like Invasion is going to be amazing. It looks like a great set, and I'm sure it's going to be super fun when it comes out. But I mean, I'm so excited not just for Invasion, but for the sets after that because I'm having a blast working with you guys. It's been really satisfying already.
Invasion, I'm excited for the update to the back of the cards. I'm actually excited to see the new templates. How people are receiving them well now. They're
Mhm.
gorgeous,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be honest. Genesis didn't need that update really much. Like I still have that soft spot for the old design,
Hmm.
but I'm
Yeah.
really like where the direction has gone. It looks like a modern card game now, and that is important going forward.
Yeah, we have like, and there's some good thought process, even in the back of the cards, the thought process, like we actively talked about what can we do better? And one of the things was a lot of card games out there have had really dark backgrounds on the backs of the cards with blacks and reds and browns. And we purposely were like, well, the industry would do good if there was some brighter, more colorful, eye-catching artworks, which is one of the thoughts that got incorporated into the new card back. And I think in the future there'll be other cool ideas like that and other little things and tweaks that happen where if we think the industry should be doing something, we're not going to be afraid to try it ourselves, you know? We'll do that to try and bring some positive change around it. And who knows? Someday down the road, some of our ideas might start seeing getting incorporated in other games, like little tweaks and whatnot. Because, that's how the market works. Somebody does something really cool, somebody else puts their own spin on it and keeps going.
There's nothing wrong with change. If anybody reads ICV2, the one gaming industry comic, like the Basement of the Nerd newsletter website, I don't know what they call themselves, but there's a big announcement today from one of the gaming publishers, Jasco, who are now undergoing not only a name change for their company potentially, but they're actually their flagging mark game, Universes. They're actually going about changing the backing of the cards. This will be the first
Oh,
major under the Universes brand, and for this whole game system will be the third, like the major. They said second or third major change. So they went from the UFS into Universes. They had a new back done, and they just announced, hey, we're changing the back again. Your cards are all legal, but we're going to change up the color backing to the back as well, and some of the layout of the cards. So there's not like larger companies are doing it.
yeah.
There's nothing to be afraid of a change. It is one of the best things that can happen in the industry is kind of progressing further and pushing your limits.
That's actually really cool to hear. I hadn't heard that yet. But that's a great thing. Like you can't be afraid of change. You have to be willing to push the boundaries because otherwise how do you find greatness if you're not willing to take risks and whatnot, right? I'm not saying being reckless, but if you really believe in something, like really believe in it, you can't be afraid to do it, right? And that's where we're at. I see there's actually a follow-up question for you too. I'm just going to read it real quick in case you didn't see it in the chat. It says, JC, another question, and sorry to ask so many. Don't be sorry, cardboard cohorts. Ask all the questions you want. That's what we're here for. But it's like, JC, another question. What is the one main thing you see Edge of Exile doing differently than Haunted Castle Gaming did that will make this game grow to new heights? Obviously, besides not treating it as a passion project. So, is there anything else that you've noticed or thought about so far that has a different vibe or something that we're doing here a little differently than the old company did that you think is going to be another thing that's going to lead to success?
So it comes down to, again, it'll sound like a cold business answer. Never take my thing as a cold business answer. Because again,
If
I'm
it's
in
honest, it doesn't matter if it's a business answer, right? As long as you're being honest, right? So,
but the main thing is, I look at Jason, I look at Janice, and I look at Jeff. I've got to know Jeff through the Genesis community. Great artist, very passionate about the game. Still
great
wants to do his
person
5
too.
deck here. That
Jeff's a really
great
great guy.
person.
Yeah.
But I remember. I'm not going to tell the full story, but I remember how I found out this was all going down. And the only thing that came to my mind was I know Jason and Janice's backstory of why they opened North of Exile, the big risk they took there, what they have done, how they've adapted into the community that they were in. And I'm like, you know what? That there's more than enough to put my faith into what they're doing with the project. because I believe you told the story before. You were, I think it was like 16 years where you are, and something changed, and you're like, I'm just going to go into business for myself. And you took a huge risk, and you've always been willing to adapt to the changes of the community that you're in. I remember how you got soft serve ice cream into your store, where it's like
Yeah.
in the pandemic, you're sitting outside at an ice cream shop and you're just watching the lineup. Like that's a lot of I'm going to use the term coins sitting there,
Yeah.
and this being able to look at things, evaluate, and make those decisions there. That's a big difference there already. Just knowing that knowledge was like, okay, I can be excited for this actually. I can be excited just based off the information I knew about you and Janice and how you got into the venture that you're in. I hope that answers the question.
And on the other side of that, from our perspective, I was really excited when you first mentioned that you would be willing to work with us because, on a personal level, as we already said, like we've been friends for a few years. But and then on a more like a gaming related level, I like you're one of the most passionate gaming related people I know. Like it's your everyday work life. You were doing it for the original company, and like it's a pun to say it in a way because it is a saying, but you do all this for the love of the game. That's why you're involved in it. It's not about the fame, it's not about the money. For you, it's about working on something that really excites you. At least that's what I think you've told me in the past. And I have so much respect for that. Like,
I
you're
think
so
we had our first
passionate about the
conversation.
industry. So,
But
sorry,
then
what
one
was
of our
that?
first conversations when we were coming to, it's like, well, do you want to come back? It's like I'm not in this for money. Never made me happy. And so even that's the thing I say when I in my normal day jobs, like money doesn't make me happy. Being part of a team, getting tasks done, making a difference somewhere, that gives me more joy than any dollar bill you can give me. And that is the first. I think that's the first discussion we had. Like I'm in this for. I don't want to say passion, but to put the knowledge I have of the industry, put my knowledge of gaming to the test. It doesn't seem like a test, but that's probably what it is. And applying that. So again, when we're problem solving, it's coming down to, well, where else in the industry has this been used, and can we apply to what we're doing?
Well, I mean, and even in the early stages of development since we've taken over, you've made some great contributions and brought a lot of ideas, and you have a lot of great product knowledge on what other games have done. So, like, your insight has been really valuable. So, I couldn't be happier that we were lucky enough to get you on the team. And again, because we're already friends anyways, it's really nice to have an actual project to work on with you, as opposed to like we used to only talk once every other month just to say hi and me try and talk you into coming up for ice cream. And now it's like every week I get to check in with you and like talk about something gaming related. So there's a lot of nice little fringe benefits for me personally of getting to work with you on this. So it's been really, really cool.
It certainly has. And I'm sure it's going to be one heck of an adventure as we travel down this long and winding road to the next arena. Eh?
Yes. Ah, man, I'm so excited. Is there anything gaming related that you'd like to talk about? I know we talked earlier today a little bit about bullet points we might want to cover tonight. I remember you talking a little bit to me earlier today that topics we might want to discuss is maybe the future of champions, game mechanics. Like you've got a wealth of knowledge in your mind about things that you you see for the future of Genesis. So, like, what do you want to talk about?
Well, champions first. I know we've talked. There's that discussion going around about plus champions and ideas around it. How do you feel about updating champions or give them a new look on life?
Existing ones?
Existing ones.
Yeah,
I
Jeff and
love
I.
Malik, but I could use about 10 more aura with him, and
Yeah.
usually one more energy reduction.
Well, Jeff and I had talked about a month ago on one of the live streams about how we totally foresee the idea of champions changing over time as they go further down their own lifeline, right? So maybe
Yep.
experiences in the lore and the storyline causes changes to either their affiliation or their stats or their abilities. And I always liked how Magic, when they would update their planeswalkers, it'd be the same character, obviously, but like there's a million different versions of Liliana or Garuk or whatever. And sometimes they change in that game it's colors, not affiliations, but like you can do all these cool tweaks, and it talks about the journey and that character's experiences in their world. And I'm really looking forward to that because there's some cool champions right now in the game that would be fascinating to see how they develop. Like Erica's the young champion, right?
Yes.
She would be she'd be a great example of someone as she gets a little bit older. You know, new artwork. She's a little bit more older, maybe a little more battle tested or weathered or whatnot, or some other way. Like maybe she turns out looking like a Disney princess. I don't know. Maybe life's really good for her. We'll see how it goes, right? But it'll be really cool to do new cards where there's new versions of the characters as time progresses. And then obviously that also lends itself to maybe someday some of the champions wind up dying off, you know, over time or whatnot, which leads room to new champions and whatnot. And I'm really excited about that. I think uh, the most important part is always going to be that the gameplay has to be fun because at the end of the day, it has to be the game has to be really fun. But if you can incorporate a little bit of a story in the background, just the way Magic and other games have done that, a little bit of a story to tie it all together and give some reasons for why people change, I think that'll be really fun. And Jeff and I have talked a fair bit in depth about what we think the lore of the story is going to be going forward. I know we haven't talked about it with the design team in our staff meetings because we always have so many other things to talk about. But before we commit to the next chapter or two of the lore, we'll get your guys' feedback on it as well. And I think it's going to be really fun. I'm very excited to see characters grow up, grow old, change, maybe travel through time. Who knows? Nothing's off limits, right? So, what
You
are your
know,
thoughts? What would you love to see happen? Any ideas?
I would love to see, just as you said, like I looked at them as planeswalkers, or again, I'll use the UFS universe's idea.
Mhm.
There is not one Ken or Ryu version in this game. There's not one in the universe's Midoriya. There's different points of their adventure or their journey. So at one point, again, I'll use the universes because that's what I've been
Is that what
tweaking
you're
a lot
playing
with.
a lot when you're not doing Genesis? Is that your game of choice right now?
That is my game to go to at the moment to go in and check for ideas. That's
That's
where I'm at right now.
nice.
But one of the characters has this really powerful ability, but it's him kind of giving up everything to do it. But as we see different versions of him going later on, it seems like he's gotten better control of his powers in that for each different version of this card. And then the card in universes, there's three symbols you kind of play along in that what your deck's supposed to be built among. Usually one of those symbols will change between each version, just depending on where they are in their time. It's kind of like
That's cool.
Planeswalker. Sometimes you might see, I don't know who's a good example. Who's gone to double color before? Someone will start
Greg
off in
went
green.
green
Well,
black for a while.
yeah. So he had Gurr. He's like when he got corrupted, he started going to black, and that as
Yeah.
one of his colors. Something similar. Where I'm not going to say a character going to change their affiliation, but you might see them change how they do one of their abilities. Maybe Malik is not hitting you for 4 damage and inserting himself in 2 life. Maybe he's just hitting you harder, and then he's getting better with maybe techniques or something, or another card type that he could use better in combat. So we see him in that version of himself. His old version will still be there for you if you want to play it, but then we'll see maybe another version down the road where he's a bit more experienced from before as well.
Hmm.
And I think it's one of the best things that could happen.
You know what else would be cool? And in terms of long-term storytelling, is I don't know if Magic ever did this, but it would be neat to see two champions kind of get married and maybe have a champion as a kid down the road who would like blend the parents' abilities. I don't think any planeswalkers ever did anything like that, but something like there could be some really cool storytelling with like family lines getting crossed and stuff like that, or
It's like new Avengers.
yeah, right. So,
It seems like we're telling the story of Dragon Quest V all over again.
oh, how did that happen? Weird.
Yeah,
My favorite video game series of all time. Wow, huh? Weird.
don't you start out in that, you get married, then you have a kid, then you play for the kid as well, then go back and like save your parents or something like that?
Something
I
like
only
that.
watched the movie.
Yeah.
I haven't played that game.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Yeah. There's also a giant pet, like a giant cat or tiger
Yeah.
involved in that game as well. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
So
love them. They're all good.
it'd be cool to see two champions who are together, and maybe we do skip time and 10 years down the road, we're seeing a young champion develop for the first time
Yeah.
as a young hero.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool storytelling options and opportunities that are going to be available over time. It'll be fun to focus on the short-term storytelling of the next couple years in real life play, but like who knows where the story could go over the next 5 to 10 years, and that's really fun to daydream about. We'll have to actually figure out some bullet points of where we eventually want to get to way down the line, because that's always how you weave a really good story is have a couple milestones you want to hit later on down the line and you can work your way towards it. So
Damien Ken before he got wings.
Con before he
We
got wings. That
we we could explore that. We could go back at one point and explore Kun when he was under Anja, actually, because
a
that's where he
little
came from. He
I have a
migrated over to.
I have a little comment for Damien just in response to that. Damien, do me a favor. When this live stream ends tonight, make sure you watch to the very end of the credits, just because it's funny that you said that. You'll understand when you get to the very end of the credits. But
Erica, the old crazy cat lady. We could get there.
Erica, the old crazy cat lady. I love that. That's actually a cool idea. That's funny. Erica's
I,
just
I would
surrounded with cats. They're all trained killers.
I would love to see Kendra actually sane, like in her mentality. That'd be interesting because we all see Kendra as crazy,
That would be cool.
not corrupted by the book or that or anything like that, being suspended in time, but her actually having the sanity of, oh wait, this has all happened. I look like I'm 20 years old, mind you, with crazy hair, but really I'm I'm hundreds of years old because suspended in time.
If you might give me worse, I'm gonna cough. Thanks.
And that makes no sense. Summoning tigers, not wolves. Yeah, I didn't read the lore, so I can actually excuse myself from that one. I just great ideas.
All I can really say about the lore, is I can't wait for people to see over the next year the immediate lore that's going to come out, because I think it's going to be really fun. I love to tell stories, and I'm very much enjoying working on the new lore.
And,
Don't
you know
make
what?
me laugh when I drink, and I saw that in the camera. I almost spit all over the laptop. That would have been bad.
I know what, I know Will and I have enjoyed some, like, I'm not going to share anything with anyone out there, but some of the ideas I've been throwing around with story. I know there's a current story going on, and Will and I have even discussed, like, well, where's this story going, and that where are we going to the next? Where's this arc end? Where does the next one begin? Is what we were discussing more recently, and we're
Very cool.
excited. We are very excited on where this adventure is going to go.
I love to hear that, because I'm also excited, and so is Janice, and I can speak for Jeff and say that, like, the whole team's excited. I'm so happy that we're really lucky right now. You realize that, JC, that we have a team of 5 people who are all creatives, who all love this kind of thing. Like, I'm so excited. Like, it's a really fun team to work with, and everybody's coming up with cool ideas, and blending it all together has been just so much fun already. So
It certainly has, and it's nice to be able to to talk openly and say, hey, here's the ideas, here's what we're all thinking, and there's no, well, that's a terrible idea. It's like, how do we want to do this? How do we want to approach it? That's all it's coming down to is let's go, let's do this.
yeah, it's nice to know that no good idea will go unexplored, right? If someone brings forward an idea, we're gonna follow it, which is really cool. So
I want to
Absolutely.
just say that, all the ideas are taken in and we're just, it may not get used for this next set, but the next set or in the future. So there's never a bad idea. It's just where is it going to fit,
yeah, that's true.
right? As we go
There's
forward.
always a time and place,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? Look how long it takes for contraptions to become a reality, right?
Yeah, because that was something. Didn't Morrow talk about contraptions like years and years ago? And wasn't there one card that referenced it or something like that, and then nothing ever
uh,
came?
Steam Flogger boss back in Time Spiral, I think it was.
Yeah, it wasn't even an unset card. It was a real card.
It was a
Which
real boy.
I All right, so that's
So
champions. What else do you want to talk about today? What's going on in that brilliant mind of yours?
mechanics. Where do you see this game going mechanic wise? Because I'm always curious, and I'm sure that people are curious as well. What rattles around our minds on a daily basis?
Well,
What's the next mechanic?
for me, one of the things I'd like to do over time isn't necessarily to introduce, not necessarily introduce some new mechanics, but there's some amazing potential for old mechanics that never got used. It was so silly. Like a little bit of inside baseball talk for the people watching at home. One of the things we've talked about a fair bit in our development meetings is it bothers me that there are creature subtypes in Genesis and it never really mattered. Like I want subtypes to matter. That's something that like maybe there's bonuses if you have enough of a certain subtype, like soldiers or whatever out there, or wolves. If you have enough wolves out, all of a sudden it's a pack of wolves and it gets a boost or whatnot. It's the fact that they're all the resistances and boosts like dark damage resistance, electric damage, those things never hardly got used at all. And like other than pillars would do one extra damage, but like lots of times creatures in the game summons would have like they do electric damage or fire damage or whatever, and it doesn't really matter because there's not enough things in the game that energy
Make it
types
noteworthy.
were relevant, right? So that's something that got severely underused in my opinion. I'm like, why do we have all these types of damage? Holy, heavy, dark, like heavy specifically because you've been around for the whole time, right? What
Uh,
what was the point of heavy? Like I don't really remember any. There was no heavy pillar. Like when did heavy come into play?
Heavy's been around since I believe right since Alpha. Heavy's just it is a type of attack. It is more like your strong attack, but a heavy attack is always action speed, and that's how
Okay,
it's always. It
but
is an
was there
action.
ever anything that mattered if it was heavy or not? Like
Nope.
not really, right? So things like that I think are silly. There was so much potential for things like subtypes and energy types and damage resistances. And they, like, other than the fact they got printed on the card, they never became relevant. So I'd love to actually use some of those existing mechanics properly and make them like really vital, integral parts of the game for a set or two, and then maybe focus on a different thing, you know?
I I think in Future League there was one. I think it was a wolf or that was working off the typo basis, but it never made it through into the actual set. And there was something where they're either by each other, or I don't know if it's looking for the typo itself or if it's looking for another like creature of the same name.
Yeah.
But it was something that was there. I know Will is very passionate about getting typo going as well because it is something that should be thoroughly explored. Again, it's another way to bring out your spells, your techniques. Like if you look at the costing of how everything is, the moment you start pigeonholing into those typos, that you can change the cost for something to be because it's only for that specific thing. And if you want something to be generic across all creatures, you can have it at a higher cost. Same with a lot of abilities like weaknesses. Weaknesses before were a way to like bring down a cost of a creature, I think it was, but that's about it. But weakness should be more prominent as well in the game.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think either that weakness needs to be limited to only one extra damage. I could see a case where, like, maybe a guy has a stronger weakness against water specifically for whatever reason. He's a fire type guy. He's literally made of fire, but maybe he's got a weakness of 2 against water or something like that. There's things like that we could explore too, where it would make sense for something to be really powerful against most things, but oh god, if a water guy shows up, look out. So there's
You're in
stuff like that
trouble.
we could explore, which will be really fun too. Like there's just so much potential of previous game mechanics that didn't get used that I can't wait to explore, and I think will make the game a lot more fun in future sets.
The other thing I'm looking forward to exploring, I know in our mine and Will's conversation last week after the live stream, is affiliations having something that they do really, really good, something they do okay, and something's like, we can do this, but this is not our greatest attribute. And that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the biggest things I always had with prior design of the game is that the formulation of how everything was costed, it was all the same across all affiliations. I'm sorry, not everybody's really good at maybe countering in that. So Axon might do it really good. Chaos might do it okay. Bellum might get it, but it's going to be either very pricey or very, very niche on how they go about it. And same with something like Fatigue. Axon might be terrible at Fatigue because that's not what they do. But Thymos is just really good at making sure you're milling out that deck.
Yeah, I like that. It doesn't have to be the balanced same cost for every affiliation. You're right. It doesn't even make sense for it to be balanced for every affiliation because each affiliation and that's another thing that I'm looking forward to us really exploring more in the future is we want to make the affiliations more defined, more unique, right? Because I feel like in some ways, sometimes the affiliations can be interchangeable and you could look at a card, cover up the affiliation on the card and think, this could go into any set in the past. Whereas I think in the future, it'd be fun if, as we really flesh out these affiliations and get the personalities and the cultures behind them in our minds, that it'll make more sense for certain affiliations to be really great at some things and not great at others, which means the cost would be higher to use it or employ it. And then there's certain staples, I think, like the ability to draw an extra card. That's probably crucial for every affiliation to be able to do it, but the cost might be totally different. Maybe one affiliation you have to sacrifice a creature from the arena to draw a card, and maybe another one you have to give up a few life, and maybe another one whatever.
You
Like,
have to discard a card from your hand and another payment on top of it to get it.
right. As long as all those costs are on theme with the identities of the affiliations, I think it'll make it a lot more fun gameplay experience for people because one of the things that I didn't really consciously think about when I was a huge Magic fan, and I still am a Magic fan, I was a judge for years. But one of the things I didn't consciously think about was I loved blue and I loved white for a lot of time. Those were my color pairings that I played. But I love those colors for reasons because those colors did things other colors didn't offer, right? And then you
Yeah.
get really passionate about it. And like a friend of mine, Ed, he was a hugely obsessive red player because his whole thing was if he can beat you within 3 minutes and get the game over, then that's amazing for him, right? That's what he loved about it. And I can't wait for the play styles of different affiliations to be really unique because it's going to be really cool someday when somebody is at a Genesis tournament and they're like, I'm Thymos all the way. I live for Thymos or I live for Bellum. And that's cool because when you feel like a certain affiliation or color or whatnot matches your real life personality, that's when you really get hooked on the game because you're like, this is my play style. This is me proving to you that my affiliation is better than yours because my plan worked. And the game in general hasn't really explored that so much because a lot of times it felt like the affiliations were interchangeable in the past. So that's another thing that I think as we explore it and really define it better, I think people are going to just find the enjoyment of the game goes way up because they're going to identify with the affiliations more.
It's one of my so you're absolutely correct. Being able to explore that in that manner is great. And then giving the people so again, we'll look at Aja, we'll look at Bell and Thymos. They're going to do something really, really good. They might have something from another affiliation, but again, they're not really good at it. I look at Decipher's Mega Man 2004. They had their 4 colors of cards. They had their characters. Their characters did have their core resources pinned to hold 2 certain colors. And when you usually got abilities at a cheaper cost than what would be in that color. And then what ended up happening is you learn how to kind of explore other things or other ways to do things or break out of your normal colors. You got into different abilities as well that made the game very unique in that way, in that manner. And I really think Genesis should be that way as well. So if I'm running, again, Bellum Thymos, if Bellum has a very niche counter ability somewhere, I might run that as a 1 of or 2 of just to have that one chance to counter something that might save me the game, even though it's going to cost me a lot more per se.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. I'm having so much fun talking with you. Sorry. I became a fan for a second there. I apologize, everyone.
But that's where the game needs to be. Like, there's all these. You think about it. We got the affiliations, or that we have card types. We have subtypes of these cards. Whether if it's techniques, if it's melee, if it's a throw, if it's a punch, a kick. For creatures, we have all the typos. We have chi. We have all this stuff on a card. and we need to start using. That is one of the things I'm looking forward to, is using each of those elements and pushing them to where they need to be. Maybe I want to search for a certain level of chi on a card, or maybe I want to be able to pull a certain card that's affiliation from something else. Those objects are there. By God, I want to use them to their
Yeah.
max.
There could totally be some fun creative opportunities there. Like a tutor for your deck where if it's 3 or 4 chi, it's free by playing the card. If it's 5 or 6, maybe it costs you a life, and if it's 7 or 8, maybe it costs you 3 life to go. Stuff like that where the chi of what you're looking for is relevant and it affects how the card works that you're using. Lots of cool interactions like that that haven't existed at all so far. So there's lots of cool game design opportunities for it, which will be fun to explore.
Definitely it will be, and it's, again, it's one of the most. It's the thing I'm truly excited for, is being able to put those two down and saying, let's see what it does.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be really fun over the next few years because we're still going to be the core game is going to be the same mechanics everybody's always loved, but there's just going to be a little more to it. It's going to be refined. Yeah, that's a good. I was going to say fleshed out, but refined is actually much better. Good call. So yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to elevate the game, and
It's little things that will do it. It's
yeah.
little things that will do it, and every game somewhere has done it.
Mhm.
Let's be honest. They've refined something to make it a little better. I'll use universes for an example. When I used to play this system many years ago, there's something on the cards now that every card has it, but before, not every card had it. So it definitely changed the tempo of the game, changed the feel of the game, but it's still that game that you love and enjoy. And I'm really hoping for that for Genesis. Like, give them that
Yeah.
one thing that people like really want to start seeing, and like, yeah, this changed the game, but it's it's still Genesis Battle of Champions at the end of the day, and it feels great.
Yeah. Ugh. It just it's hard not to be optimistic right now, because there's so it just I always felt even with the old company, I always felt like the game had the potential, as it was before under the old management team, to really reach amazing heights and spread across the globe. I truly believe that. That's why I was always pushing it so much in my store because I felt like I was ahead of the curve a little bit, right? I had discovered this really cool game that has unlimited growth potential. And then now that we're actively involved in guiding it into the future, it's really cool to have this game that's already great, but now we're elevating it, refining it, adding new things, taking better advantage of the things that were already in it that were maybe underutilized. And like, if I thought it had global potential before, like now I really believe it even more so because like we've talked in our development meetings and whatnot about what the future plans are for the game. We've looked at the artworks and the card backs. We've revealed those things to people. And like, I think there's just everything is just getting better, and I love it. I'm so excited. And I still love
And,
playing it.
and people should be excited for the game going forward. Like, don't be afraid of change. And even in the games that we love, don't be afraid of change. And change is always something that's going to happen. It is a part of our daily lives. It's part of the games that we love.
Mhm.
I I played collectible games for the better part of 20 plus years. I'm gonna be honest. I've seen some games change so much over those years that it is still the same game at its heart. It is still the same game. They might tweak something to make it a little better, make it a bit more relevant for the gameplay, or just to make sure that the game is still fun.
Yeah.
So serious saying that. But
It is
yeah,
funny. I can say it is funny. Um, Even just this week, I saw somebody did a video on YouTube, and I forget the name of the content creator. I'm sorry. It was somebody I hadn't heard of before, but I saw a video where somebody was talking about the game being under new ownership and how there are some changes happening. And the person had a bit of a negative feel because he was like, "Oh, I'm less excited than I used to be. I don't think that it's going to be amazing because of all these changes." And the thing that I'd just like to suggest to people is just wait till it comes out and keep an open mind because a lot of people seem to live their lives in fear of change and worry that things are always going to be the worst case scenario. I used to live my life like that years ago. I suffer from a bit of anxiety, and my mind used to always race about if anything changes, it's going to be terrible. And I've since learned that, like, a lot of the times changes are for the better, you know? And I firmly, firmly, firmly in my heart believe that people are going to love the game even more when the next set comes out because they're going to love the changes to the art and the style and all that. And the fact the cards are more legible and easy to read. And I firmly believe that the set after that, when they see some of the cool things that we're designing now, they're going to love it. And it's just, I just want to ask people, just keep an open mind and don't assume it's going to be bad, you know, because you could very easily be shocked that it's going to be amazing.
So I'd say look at the industry itself. I use Universes because it's the game I'm digging into a lot right now. On my side is that game has been owned by 3 companies. It was owned by Sabretooth when it originally released. Fantasy Flight Games bought it because I believe Sabretooth had the rights to, like, I don't know, if it was Warhammer or something else. They were going to discontinue it, and that was Jasco who turned around and purchased it from FFG at, I think it was like 2010, and now have held the game system for the better part of 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Game like HeroClix is the same way. It used to be, I forget who, I think it was NECA. I think WizKids picked up NECA. I'm going to be honest, HeroClix is a miniature game, goes through probably some form of rule changes once a year and on core rules for core abilities.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. They just went through, I think it was their last Spider-Man set back in March. They actually changed the map size of the game. It used to be a 2x3 setup. It's now a 2x2.
Oh, okay.
And with that, a lot of characters on how far they can, make an attack from, their movements, and what other abilities they might have. Those kind of took a shift too. Some of them for the better, some of them maybe not for the greatest. But they went after like the core game. But they're always looking at changing the game so it's fun as well. They want a certain feel, and that's where they've gotten down to is, again, they changed a few core rules in their map size just to get to where they want to be. And this is a game that's been around for the better part of probably almost 20 years. It does happen.
I didn't realize that it had been around that long. That's cool.
Yeah, so change is always going to happen. Companies take over other games. One of the more, I don't want to say hype games right now, was Kingmaker, which is based off the War of the Roses that's just released by Gibson's Games. It's a game that's like from the 1970s. It's a board game. Like, things change. People bring things back or they redevelop them. It's always going to be part of the cycle. We just have to be open to change, and change is always a good thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep repeating myself, but I think it's going to be great. I honestly truly believe that the people who love Genesis are going to be really excited when they see these changes because it's not fundamentally changing the game. It's just cosmetic changes. It's minor tweaks and things like that. And I'm really optimistic, and I think it's going to be really fun. And I can't wait for our next set, Invasion, to come out this Q4 of this year. It's going to be really cool. People get their hands on it and open those first few packs. And even the booster packs are going to look really sick. Jeff's done some great job designing some of the booster pack artworks, which I know that you saw in the team design chat. And it's going to look great. Like, the booster boxes are going to look great. The packs are going to look great. There's going to be more foils in the game, but only like the good foils, epics and rares and things like that. You're not going to be opening a bunch of common foils anymore. I think like there's lots of tweaks that are going to be great. You're laughing about that.
No left hook as a foil. Don't worry. No left hook as a foil.
Exactly, right? That was something that I thought was wrong. I'm like, nobody wants to open up a foil, see it at the back of the pack, get all excited while they're scrolling through the cards, and then they get to the back and it's like a rabbit or like a decoy rabbit or like a left hook, right? Like, nobody wants that.
I'll take a foil decoy rabbit any day of the week. It's a decoy rabbit. They're absolutely gorgeous, and I'm sorry, the alpha version of decoy rabbit still has like the most detail on any Genesis card. And I'll stand by that.
Was that a card that used stock artwork? Because I know some of the alpha cards had stock artwork. Or was that one where it was actually done for the game?
I'm trying to remember who did the artwork on Decoy Rabbit.
Because it would be funny if the one that you thought had the most amazing detail was just a licensed stock artwork.
If it's a licensed stock art, I will give that person all the credit. It was Rumyana. that did the artwork for that. I am terrible at name pronunciation today, but the rabbit is absolutely gorgeous on that art, on
That's
its little string.
yeah. That was the one where it looked like it was almost hanging from a fishing pole or something like that,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah. I remember that
I
art.
still love that. It's still my favorite, and definitely the full art of that one day.
That's cool. All right, so we talked about champions, we talked about mechanics. What else was on your list of cool things you wanted to talk about tonight?
I'm running a blank now. I have my notes on my phone.
I thought there was a third topic that you wanted to talk about, but I can't remember it either. Let me see if I can pull up our chat history.
I gotta go back, check the chat. What crazy
Right?
things was he saying at 2 o'clock today?
Yeah, I know. At 2 o'clock, everything was all mapped out and we had everything figured out. It was just fine.
Two
Now,
o'clock was a different world.
mechanics. Oh, we could talk a little bit about the story arc. We could talk about that a little bit, in so much as we've already publicly talked about the fact that there's new lore. The first chapter of the lore is up on genesisbattlechampions.com. The second chapter is probably going to be a couple weeks away, just because right now I've been working really hard on getting instructional videos on how to play Genesis up on the actual Genesis website. Here's something. Actually, that's something I want to talk to you about for a second, JC, and we might as well let the viewers at home witness the conversation as I ask the question: why did the old company never make their own tutorial videos on how to play? It seems like everything I've ever found online were videos made by content creators, including, I know for a short amount of time, one of my old how to play videos was the official one linked on genesisbattlechampions.com years ago. And like, here's a funny story for you. I went online this week looking for all the write ups about the 5 different affiliations in Genesis because I was going to start referencing that in my tutorials, right? What?
There's none.
And there, yeah, that's right. And there's none. There is like no content I could find online talking about the 5 affiliations and their identities and cultures and all that. And I just got to ask you, because you were involved the whole time, how is that possible? That like these key resources that new players who heard about the game and want to learn about it, like no original made by Haunted Castle Gaming how to play videos, no write ups about the cultures and the differences in play styles of the affiliations. Like what am I missing here? Like why didn't that stuff already exist from a first party perspective as opposed to content creators and just using their stuff?
So I think there's a few things that could answer this. I don't have an official answer. I probably never will. Two things. One, I'm going to go back to it's this capacity. If you look at the team back then to what the team is now, there was probably never the capacity there. Again, it was a passion project, right? So you're trying to get on
Right.
to the next step. Is there something about what the affiliations are? Maybe in a notebook somewhere or in an old file of what each of them are and what they stand for.
Yeah.
But
But
that's
nothing public, right? Nothing like out there
no,
on the internet.
no.
Don't you feel like that's a bit
Even
of a that would have been a bit of a hindrance for you guys back under the old brand? That like those are things that new players would want to know, I would think.
I would think so too.
Just
There
nobody
might be
had the time, eh?
there might be a blurb somewhere. It
Yeah.
could be in an old part of the website on an old page that says, "Hey, this is what Bella means and this is what it stands for." And that's it. It's the
Well,
smallest little thing.
it's funny because I went through. You know how Sid used to do Sid's ramblings or whatever they
Yep.
were. I went through them because there was one for Thymos, I want to say, and I think there was one for Bellum, and then it was like next week Axon, and then it went to something else, and they never got done the rest of them. So I think there's 2 of them in the ramblings, and I was like, that's almost worse. I could find 2 out of 5, and the other 3 never got. So I laughed. It's just funny the things that I took for granted would exist and were out there. And then when I realized, oh, these things actually don't exist. So that's why, like, I've been working for several weeks on the how to play videos. And if anyone's curious, you can check them out on genesisbattlechampions.com. I only have the first 2 chapters because I'm doing how to play Genesis videos in very short, between 2 to 4 minute segments. And like one talks about playing on the map or in the arena. The next one talks about moving around the arena and the difference between moving one square, two squares. And the one I'm working on this week, which is almost done, which will be the third chapter, is awareness. How creatures can only see certain squares and the rest of them are blind spots around them. So I've been doing it step by step to really make it easy for new players to click here, watch a couple videos, take a break when you want, come back, watch the rest, and then you'll understand it all. And I'm
So,
very excited to get that done eventually, but it's going to be weeks before I get all of it done.
so I find it, I don't want to say funny, I find it interesting that you're going that approach, because I do believe that, hey, Magic Historian, I'm going to say a lot of games forget that there's the world where everybody believes, like, you go on the internet, you learn everything. That's where you need to go. Go learn there. That's great. People do need a breakdown of how the game plays
Yeah.
on a step-by-step basis, because there is a lot going on. This game does play like a miniature game, but with a deck. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody understands on how things move, how they interact. I know I'm just recently teaching a game myself. Again, I go back to Universus. I end up teaching a person, and I'm like, okay, all those abilities on the cards, just ignore them. We're just going to play the flow of the game of how cards just get played and how they kind of resolve and that and how you pay for stuff. And Genesis is very similar to that, where it's like, it needs a step by step. It's like, don't worry about all these abilities on the cards. Worry about how you move around, how you see things, how you play a card from your hand, and just how damage is done. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about the stack and how it all resolves with all these abilities getting thrown on, but just one by one piece. And then once you have that down, it's like, okay, now let's add the meat and potatoes at the end of the day and add that next layer where the strategy really comes into effect.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great resource when I get the video series done. My goal, the reason why I'm focused on this right now and doing all this work is because I really want GenesisBattleOfChampions.com to be a one-stop shop resource that you could go to third-party content creators and find everything you want, but I want there to be like a first-party, originally made explanation for everything right on the website. There's also the new lores right on the website. There's the spoilers for cards. Like if you want to know anything about Genesis, I want you to be able to get all the answers from the one website to make life easy for everyone because that's how it should be. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really scope out the depth of the old website that the old company had before it all kind of got shut down or it switched over. But I don't like, I know that there was a lot of stuff that was missing that should have been there. And I'm excited because I think that's going to help the growth. Because if new players can just go to one website and find answers for everything they want, I think it's going to make life so much easier for us and for the store owners out there. Because right now we're in the business of convincing store owners who maybe have never heard of Genesis before that this is a great game. It's got to be easy to learn as well, and it's got to be super fun to play. And if we have a website that anybody can go to and find every answer they need, well, that takes care of that middle point, easy to learn. And that's something that I don't think Genesis actually had before, at least not in a proper sense. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, is because I know it'll help all the local game store owners who take a chance on the game and bring it in. If there's like, hey, customer, go here and you'll learn everything in 25 minutes. Done.
That's what the website for any game should be. Is this is where you go to learn it. This is where you go to find your information about it. Like, one of my favorite updates to the website right now is like the product pages for the card images, because I'm not looking through some crazy filter anymore that shows like 9 cards at a time.
Yeah.
It's like, boom, here's the list of cards. Perfect. What card was I looking for again? Oh, great, there it is. Perfect. I don't have to go through 20 pages of craziness with the filters. Bam, it's there. I can start looking at stuff what I'm looking for.
Nice.
Something that simple. As for that one-stop place and people learning, there's still one of the biggest, not biggest announcements, one of the minor announcements this year was for onboarding from Konami with Yu-Gi-Oh, where they had actually gone about going to a 2-player starter product that's going to be accompanied by, I think, a comic book to show you step by step by step
Oh,
just
that's a
how to
cool
play the
thing.
game. And because this is something that they've been lacking, is a proper onboarding product, or just good onboarding altogether. It's been a number of years since we've had something. So
So, to your
It,
understanding, would that comic be in the two-player starter kit that the end user would buy, or is that something that like the store would have
I
one copy and they just let you read it while you're there?
I believe it's in the product. I don't know how it looks, but it's supposed to be kind of used with the comic with videos online to teach people how to play the game step
That's
by
cool.
step.
Good for them for thinking of an out-of-the-box yet entertaining way to do it. Comic books a good idea. Good on them.
It need, like every game need, like a lot of games have forgotten that starter products and learning to play the game is a vital part of playing the game and
Yeah,
getting new people in.
and on that note, one of the things I'm the most excited to do, and I've said this actually, I think I said this last week with Will. One of the things I'm most excited to do is I can't wait to get a couple starter decks designed, like new updated ones. I am so excited to get some starter products out there where you can buy maybe a two-player starter kit with updated decks that'll have maybe a couple exclusive cards in it that are playable enough that maybe existing players might just want to get it anyway, but new cards with the new card backs and everything for starters for new players. I love it. I love the whole onboarding new players experience. As a game store owner, it's one of the things I love is teaching people how to play games. I truly love it. So that's why
So
I'm really passionate about making some really cool introductory products for Genesis. I think that's something I'll be thrilled with when it comes out.
I was just actually talking to a friend of mine regarding HeroClix and starter products last night. Amazingly, when we're on, with us being on the subject, starter project. It's like a lot of starter products. One of the basic things. Like I look at Pokemon as a prime example. I'm always happy to do starter products, but there's really nothing unique except for that. Like usually that shatter glass foil that they usually do,
Yeah.
but it's still great for getting new players in. What's good for those established players is having those exclusive cards. I don't mind starter decks having exclusive cards because it's not hindering people from getting it. It is quite accessible at that point. It's easy to get multiple copies if you need it.
Yeah.
And many games do it. Like I look at Final Fantasy. I go buy a starter deck of Final Fantasy. I'm getting any of the starter exclusives. I'm getting like 3 copies of. And I'm going to be honest. There's been some starter exclusive cards that have actually been in tournament like meta decks. I'm looking at older games I played. Full Metal Alchemist. They're like your leaders were always that. Even in Universes for My Hero Academia, there are cards that only come in the starter decks, with the exception that there is a upgrade to the rarity of it that can be found in the boosters in like this extra special rarity, which is usually a different foil pattern. But the card is still easily accessible, and it makes people go and buy those starter products because those cards are still very good to use.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the way it
And
should
that's
be.
very much Genesis.
All right.
Cardboard Cohorts is saying HeroClix is an amazing game. I agree to the point where HeroClix is a great miniatures game on a casual tabletop with about 4 people trying to murder each other in the game. Tournament wise, the upgrades to the rules are probably nice fixes to make it a bit more tournament meta competitive instead of the same team being played all the time. There's my
So
2 cents.
that's cool. Just to pause for a second and go back in the chat, I noticed that Brian had asked a question a little while ago. Brian had asked, how much does the lore influence card design or vice versa? I'll start that by saying that I don't think it influences the card design a huge amount right now, in so much as I have a basic idea of where the story's going. Now there is actually a couple cards in Metamorphosis specifically that I've asked the design team to work on because they are going to be reflected in the lore a little bit. But I don't know in the past how what was it like for you with the old company? How much did the lore affect the card design, if any, or vice versa?
When I first came on, it was a lot more bottom up design, with the exception of, hey, we want this ability, can we throw it on a card? In later times, as a design team, we were working more off skeletons, so we would have kind of, hey, this is what the breakout looks like. Here are some tags we might want to look at, and design based off the chi levels and that what you think would be appropriate. Now it's still a lot of bottom up design, but I know, again, going back to you said the story with Metamorphosis, some of the key elements you'd like to see. Will and I were discussing some of the things that we'd like to see resolved, and
Cool.
are we are creating ideas based off some of the things we had discussed that we'd like to see resolved. If there's key story points that are going to happen, we should be highlighting them and working either one of two things: putting it to a card that works, or really creating from that top down. As there wasn't much that was done in the past, it would happen the odd time, but more now. If Jason, Janice, Jeff, and all of us agree, hey, we need these things highlighted, then we're going to work towards those being highlighted in our design. If we need a mechanic to be there because it's important, then we're going to build up from that mechanic as well.
How did you like it, to use an example from Magic? How did you like it when they started making cards that specifically were story cards related to key points in the lore? Because they started doing things like the Oath of the Gatewatch card because there's all this Gatewatch stuff going on. And then there was when Nicobolus did the big War of the Spark set. There were some cards like the one that I forgot what it was called, but it destroyed all planeswalkers for like 2 black mana, and that was a key point from the story and whatnot. Do you like that where like if there's a part of the storyline going on that you'll actually devote a whole card to highlighting that with like working it into a gameplay card where either someone dies or whatever? Like, do you like that where the cards directly reference and maybe show off in the artwork a key point from the storyline, or would you prefer it if all the cards weren't necessarily tied to the storyline and you just keep them more independent? You read the story and then you play the game.
I like to see. I do like to see story highlights. Just because if you're a lore person, you're going to go back and check on the lore when that happened.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of the games I played, a lot of the games I had played in the past have used like either anime or something based, and you go back and look for that scene of where that happened as well, or where, and go from there. And I did find that when Magic did those highlights, like it's cool to pay that nod off to the story as well,
Mhm.
because sometimes I think as players, like, or is every player like engulfed in the lore? No, I barely touch some of the Magic's lore, but it's always cool to say, hey, this is a point. If you ever want to get into a story, this is where this happened in this story, and this is how it went down. This is what it looked like. It's a feature that takes very little to do, but adds value to the overall of the brand itself to keep that attachment to it.
That makes sense to me. That's cool.
So
Well,
yeah,
for
I do want to do story highlights, especially for Metamorphosis. There is definitely some stuff that should get highlighted, and it's going to take a team to make sure that the highlights not great, but absolutely astounding, amazing. Like, oh my gosh, this happened. That's the image that I'd love to see in our story highlights. Like, oh my gosh, what happened? Holy Hannah. They're mad people.
yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. I'm excited about it. I can't wait. Actually, next, because we're not doing a team meeting tonight because Jeff is unavailable tonight. But next week, after the live stream ends, it'll be fun because we'll have to make sure that we as a team discuss story points a little bit next week in the lore. I'll have my summary notes ready to share with you guys next week after the live stream because it'll be a really fun discussion to get into it and what we want to highlight and what we how we want to do it.
Absolutely. And I'll be transparent here. Like, as you know, Will and I were already talking last week, as we explained earlier. We have our highlights. We pulled out some. We pulled the skeletons out of the closet. Literally, the skeletons for designing a set. And it's like, let's throw the ideas and let's start getting ideas going, because you never know when you were going to need them.
Well, that sounds really cool. I'm excited about that. That's awesome. Anything else you want to cover tonight before we wrap it up? It's been over an hour, so what? Anything else you want to talk about before we call it an evening?
I was gonna say, we're chatterboxes, aren't we?
Yeah, it's going good. To be honest with you, you're easier to talk to than Jeff is.
Oh, that shot's
he'll
fired.
he'll be watching that later on, and he'll be like, "What? Why wasn't I watching this live so I could say something in the chat?" Rah, 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 rah. But he's probably
Yeah,
asleep right now, so
you best run for the hills when he gets back, my friend.
Oh, I know. Don't worry. When he comes up to yell at me, I'll just have an ice cream ready and I'll just shove it in his face. Like, shut up and eat your blue goo. There you go.
I will pay to see that actually done.
Right?
So
That's hard for people to be mad at you when you're feeding them free ice cream. I've learned that. That's why Janice is still with me. I get a lot of forgiveness when I come home. Honey, I brought you ice cream. Sorry. Right,
oh my
baby?
goodness.
Yep.
This went off the rails very quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I can only focus for so long, and then I get giddy. I want to thank you for coming out and chatting tonight, John. It was really fun. I'm sure a lot of people were thrilled to see that you are safe and not chained to a chair, and you're here of your own volition. And I'm sure a lot of people are happy to hear that things are going well. We love having you on the team. It's been a great experience already, and I'm looking forward to continuing working with you to elevate this game that we all love. I want to thank all the viewers for tuning in tonight, and there's a lot of people I didn't get to chat with just because, or to say hi to, like the Magic Historian and Duelist. What's his name spelled? Duelist J. No, now you scrolled away from him. Well, Damien, Jason, Brian Pitts. I know the Duelist JCG or whatever his name is. You can't find it.
Tiger.
Jalarian Tiger, all these people. There's a lot of people in the chat tonight. It's really cool. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been a really great time. Thank you, JC. I'm going to go and get some dinner because I haven't eaten since yesterday, I think.
Oh, one.
Oh, the one. That's right. You brought me lunch today. So, yeah, I did eat today. But I'm going to go get some dinner now. And then we'll be back again next Monday night. Jeff, oh God, I almost forgot his name. Jeff is going to be back next week. And we're going to have some really cool news that people are going to be excited to hear next week. I've been saving it just for when Jeff's back next week. So some really cool news that big news. The company hit a milestone. We'll talk about that next week, along with some other exciting stuff going on. But in the meantime, that handsome devil to my right is John. This beautiful lady to my left is Janice. My name's Jason. It's been a blast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I can't wait to see you again next week. But first, I'm going to let John say his famous goodbye quote because he loves to say it every time. Go ahead, John. Say it for us.
I'll see you in the arena.
In the arena. Oh, yeah.